Is cruelty divine? Rethinking religious punishments through the lens of justice and compassion? Have you ever paused to consider why so many religions claiming to be guided by an all-knowing, all-loving God promote punishments that are not just harsh, but horrifying? Beheadings, amputations, stonings, these aren't just punishments. They're acts of brutal violence. They seem more like tools of terror than instruments of justice. This raises an unsettling but important question. Could a truly divine, benevolent being endorse such cruelty? The origins of brutal religious punishments throughout history. Major world religions have enforced systems of punishment that are extreme, often public and rooted in fear rather than understanding. In many ancient societies, religious law governed not only spiritual life, but also civic and criminal justice. Punishments were brutal because they were intended to deter through terror. Beheading was often prescribed for murder. Theft might result in the amputation of limbs, and adultery or blasphemy could lead to stoning or execution. These weren't arbitrary decisions. They were written into religious codes, such as the Torah, the Quran, and parts of the Bible. During eras when human understanding of morality, psychology, and justice was minimal at best. But it's crucial to recognize that these laws came from humans fallible, limited, fearful, and often driven by a desire to control. These were societies that didn't understand trauma, mental illness, or even the basic principles of rehabilitation. Their laws reflected the survival mindset of their times, not timeless wisdom. What science and criminology reveal, modern science has dramatically reshaped our understanding of crime and punishment. Studies in criminology, neuroscience, psychology, and sociology have shown us that physical punishment, whether in the form of flogging, imprisonment without reform, or execution, does little to reduce crime in the long run. In fact, it often leads to more violence, trauma, and social breakdown. People commit crimes for complex reasons: poverty, abuse, lack of education, untreated mental illness, social inequality, addiction, and trauma. Brutal punishments ignore these root causes. They offer no chance for healing or redemption. Instead, they perpetuate cycles of pain and vengeance. Evidence-based systems that emphasize rehabilitation, education, mental health support, and restorative justice have consistently proven more effective in lowering crime rates and reintegrating offenders into society. These approaches prioritize healing over harm, growth over punishment. Religious examples: violence in the name of God. Let's examine a few specific religious traditions. Islam. Certain interpretations of Islamic law prescribe cutting off the hands of thieves, beheading murderers, or stoning adulterers. Though not practiced widely in the modern Muslim world, some nations and extremist groups still implement these laws. Christianity. During the medieval period, the Church sanctioned public floggings, burnings at the stake, torture, and excommunications for heresy or dissent. These acts were done in God's name, but were clearly intended to control, not enlighten. Hinduism. Ancient Hindu texts upheld a rigid caste system that permitted severe punishments: exile, mutilation, or social death for those who broke caste norms or defied Brahminical authority. Judaism. The Hebrew Bible prescribes stoning for offenses such as adultery, witchcraft, and even working on the Sabbath. While many of these laws are not practiced today, they remain part of the religious scripture. Even now, fringe and extremist groups cite these ancient laws to justify violence. They argue that because these punishments are divinely mandated, they must be enforced even. If they clash with modern ethics and human rights, would a loving God endorse torture? This brings us back to the core question. Would a loving, wise, and just God, one who created the universe and understands the depths of the human soul, demand pain over healing? Would such a being prescribe violence as a form of justice, knowing what we now know about human psychology and societal reform? If God is truly all-knowing, wouldn't divine laws reflect growth, compassion, and adaptation over time? Instead, many religious laws remain frozen in ancient eras, resistant to change, upheld by those who claim unquestionable authority. Compare this to many secular legal systems today, which, though imperfect, strive to adapt. Nations have abolished torture and cruel punishments, favoring systems based on fairness, rehabilitation, and human dignity. If human lawmakers can evolve, Why can't divine law, man-made laws in God's name? The answer might be uncomfortable, but necessary to face. These systems of punishment were not divinely inspired. They were crafted by men of power, trying to control others in dangerous and uncertain times. They use divine authority to justify actions that, by today's standards, are both immoral and ineffective. If cruelty is evidence of divinity, then what does that say about our definition of divine? True justice should uplift, restore, and protect. It should be based on understanding, not fear. Compassion, not terror. Conclusion. Justice, not fear. Religious traditions can still offer deep spiritual value, moral guidance, and community. But when it comes to justice and punishment, it's time to ask hard questions. It's time to separate the eternal truths of love, peace, and compassion from the outdated relics of violence and fear. Cruelty is not divine, understanding is. Justice real, meaningful justice is built not on brutality, but on wisdom, empathy, and progress.